Hi, how's it going? I finally got a chance to do some more welding with the Decapower Pulse MIG welder. First, I set up the included MIG gun for aluminum. The included plastic liner worked out fine, but I did find that the included 1.2mm contact tips will not work for 0.47-inch aluminum wire. So if you want to run 0.47 or 0.45 aluminum wire, you'll need to source some other contact tips. The included 1mm tips did work for 0.35-inch aluminum, which is what I ended up using. I tried to run dual pulse with aluminum, and it basically wouldn't run at all. I was originally trying to run it on 1/8-inch aluminum to see if it would work with thinner aluminum, and I couldn't really get it to run. It's possible I just need to do more testing and tweak the settings, but I just didn't have time to experiment more today. I switched to standard pulse, and that ran just fine. It was on the ragged edge of too hot on 1/8-inch aluminum, but it did work without too much trouble. And on thicker aluminum, it was much more forgiving and much easier to get decent results, though I'd still recommend practicing a bit before running on anything important. Next, I switched out of pulse and just ran standard MIG on aluminum.
That's better.
There wasn't a lot of trial and error like I seemed to run into with pulse. It ran smooth right away at various settings. The 4-roller drive system can be set with really low tension, and it still pushes the aluminum through the gun with no problem. So ultimately, you may have to get contact tips for the wire size you want, but the machine includes a liner for aluminum, and it runs pretty well in aluminum. Switching to 4-inch wire rolls was a tiny bit annoying because the plastic nut that holds the spool in place was fiddly to get started because you have to compress the spring a bit to get the threads started. Not a huge deal, but the spool system in general was a bit fiddly. When I tried to switch to Flux core, the 8-inch spool wouldn't fit at all. It turns out Lincoln's Flux core wire rolls are slightly different than their standard wire rolls. I've never had issues with them in other welders, but in this one I found that the little nub on the back of the spool holder wouldn't let the wire roll seat properly. Granted, it was an easy fix. I just sliced the little nub off and it worked fine after that. Also, I didn't mention this before, but I guess I'll mention it now. The side door doesn't close properly. It's a struggle to get the latches to actually latch. Again, not a huge deal. I just ended up never latching it. I just let the door hang there unlatched. For flux core testing, I ran the new MIG gun I picked up since I had the aluminum liner installed in the included gun. The included gun works fine, but as I found out before, if you want to push the machine very hard, consider getting a heavier duty gun. I ran some dual shield flux core through this machine and it ran fine. But I did struggle with worm tracks, and I think part of that problem is that I didn't clean the metal I was welding, and also the wire I was using has been just sitting on the shelf in my garage, open for a long time, so it's pretty dingy. So blame me, blame the wire, but I can't imagine it's the welder's fault. Either way, there's no dual shield mode on this machine, so I put it in manual MIG mode, dialed up the inductance a bit, and set the wire speed and voltage manually, and it ran fine. I also ran some self-shielded flux core, and that ran fine as well. I ran that in synergic mode, and for the most part, I could just dial in an amperage and go. Once in a while, it seemed like the voltage was a bit on the high side, but it was never enough to be an issue. Unfortunately, that's all I had time for this weekend. Not to mention the fact that just standing here talking right now, I am drenched in sweat because it is extremely hot and humid right now. Overall, I feel like my initial thoughts on this machine have held true. It runs pretty well and seems very capable, but the build quality and quirkiness hold it up a bit. The LCD display with the missing segments, the side door that doesn't shut, the MIG gun that's not up to the task of this machine's full output, even for a few seconds, and the quirks of the wire spool holder. But the performance itself is solid. I mean, it has enough output to literally melt a light-duty MIG gun. It has plenty of arc voltage to run spray MIG. It has a very usable synergic MIG mode on steel and aluminum, as well as flux core, and it has pulse and dual pulse modes to play around with. So it's a mixed bag, but I think there's enough good things in the bag that a lot of folks would probably find the quirks acceptable. I do still plan to test TIG and do some more pulse and spray welding on steel, but that'll have to be another day. Now that I finally have a firmware update for the S-Welder DP200, I'll be installing that and doing more with that machine as well. I can't say for sure when I'll get to these things, but they will happen at some point. In the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care.